Evening YouTube. Tim Coleman and his jet-powered Go Kart project, next installment. As you can see, now that I've got the engine mount finished, been working on the steering, and this is what I've come up with so far. This is just some preliminary. I got some polypropylene ski rope just tied off on a bolt hole, and some pulleys tied with string, and just threw it together to get an idea of how much effort is required to turn this front axle, and it's turning out to be a little bit more than I expected. I did change my mind on the steering bracket, or the steering bearing mounts. It's going to be kind of hard to see this black on black, but this is the lower steering mount. It's already permanently attached, and I moved it to the back of the plate here because I was running out of real estate, and I've still got to put a brake pedal on here. So the brake pedal will be in next week, and I'll probably get it mounted up. I decided I'll probably put the brake pedal in the center of this so that I can operate it with either foot, and that's about the only place that I've got to put it, is right in this center section. And if I'd run a set of angles back up here to where I cut down this and attached it, why it'd have made it almost impossible to mount. And I'll probably leave this vertical because that's about the right height and the right position. See my steering shaft tubing, it's 3/4 inch CWSR titanium tubing. It's two pieces that I just slip fitted together with a spring joint just to get an idea. And if I sit down here on this thing, oh goodness, I don't know if I can get my feet down there with that bracket in the way, but that puts the steering wheel right where it needs to be. So, and it also leaves enough room that I can put my spool here for my take-up cable to operate this steering. This is not attached, so it just spins on the tubing. It's just laid up against that bracket. But what I'll do is right in here somewhere, once I decide exactly if I'm going to put any more angle in this or not, put the second steering bearing about where this collar is. Thinking about splicing these two pieces of titanium together. This is some tubing that I bought as scrap from a guy, and he cannot supply me a single 30-inch piece, but since this is 3/4 inch, I can use some 1-inch by 058 aluminum and rivet slide that over top of this. It's a good slip fit, about 7/1000 inch clearance, and just make it just a little bit long, and position it so that the upper steering bearing, it lays against it to kind of keep the bearing from wanting to slide out, or the shaft from wanting to slide out of the bearing. And then I can worry about setting me up a section here for the spool material. That should be in next week. Stuff's extremely light, and I wish it wasn't so expensive. $2.50 an inch if you buy it new. I like titanium. It's a miracle metal as far as I'm concerned, but I ain't planning on spending that kind of money on it. I was hoping to get maybe two 15-inch pieces of scrap tubing, but I've got a 15-inch and a 10-inch, and the way that I've got that lower shaft bearing mounted, it works out just right, so I can couple these two together where it'll be good and solid, not have to worry about any kind of a failure. And this brings it closer once I'm in the fully seated and lean back position here. I can go ahead and put the fuel control system on this plate here, and down on this plate I can put the ignition module behind that and just push that down, and then reach over here, flip the switch to turn it on. Once it lights off, everything's copacetic and we're running, and then I'll have the push button for the full power mounted on the steering wheel, and just short lengths of cable. And what I'll probably end up doing if I do that is I'll just shear these off, because I don't need anything to attach up here, and it'll look better if this is nice and flush. So that's where we're at so far. Got that pulley tied on there. These are sailboat pulleys, and I'm going to be using 3/32 inch stainless steel cable for the final installation, once I figure out how to put everything together to where it actually works, and get the diameter worked out for the spool here so that I can get the steering ratio that I want. I don't want it to be too sensitive, but I want to be able to make a complete turnaround on a standard width highway without having to run over in the grass to do a 180-degree turn to go back up the road, or the track, wherever. So that's where that's at so far. And I haven't even really thought much about the brakes. Maybe I'll just get me a rock with a rope on it, and just when I need to stop, I'll just have the rope laying, or the rock laying in my lap, and I'll just throw it out like an anchor, and let it drag and so on. Yeah, I'm just joking. But anyway, that's all I've got done. My heat shields, in order to cover the combustion chamber, the heat shields are going to have to mount from here back. That's not going to leave much support for them, so I'm probably going to have to dig up some more aluminum angle from somewhere. Either order it or see if I've got enough scrap out there that I can fabricate something. Because they're going to come out to about here in order to completely shield the combustion chamber, and that's more for personal safety than it is for actually keeping heat off of anything flammable, because that's the hottest part of the engine. I don't want somebody after a run walking up to it, and say, wow, that's a good looking engine, lay their hand on it, and pull back a burnt stub. But little by little, it's coming along. So just figured it was time for another video. I know you guys don't like to wait too long between updates, so I know I don't. So that's where we're at. So have a good evening. It's about 10:41 Eastern Standard Time here. Seems like I do my best work in the evening. I usually don't get to bed till between 12 and 2 anyway, so I'm not much good in the mornings. I am a night person, not a morning person. My wife is just the opposite. But Anyway, latest installment. Like, subscribe, comment. Don't like it, pour it on me, say, oh, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. You know, that don't look like a go-kart, that looks like somebody's butchered a gyrocopter. Well, you're right, it was a gyrocopter airframe and I butchered it. So you would be correct in that assessment. But hey, that's what I've got experience building with, and so that's the parts I had. Man's got to do what a man's got to do, don't he? Alright guys, y'all have a good evening. Appreciate you watching, and try not to make you wait too long for the next installment. Have a good evening.